Yoga teachers and Ayurvedic practitioners discourage us from practicing inversions whilst we're menstruating. So even downward facing dog, or obviously handstands and all of those sorts of things. And it's not because they're trying to disempower us as menstruators or anything like that. It's actually because the vata energy is moving downwards, and if you're upside down, that energy is then moving the wrong way. So you're disrupting that flow, and that flow of our blood leaving our body. So it's pretty interesting when you really kind of look at the science and the actual reasons behind things. And then obviously they get wrapped up in the patriarchy and capitalism and colonialization and all of that stuff and become very twisted. And when we don't understand the root, of course we're going to think they're disempowering.
Welcome to the Wildflow podcast with me, Charlotte Puanto, certified cycle and feminine embodiment coach and shamanic womb guide. In this podcast, I'll share my wisdom and conversations with powerful change makers, thought leaders, and embodied teachers to invite you to live cyclically in flow with your menstrual cycle instead of fearing it, to heal menstrual shame and normalize womb wisdom and period positivity, and to step into your sovereign magnetic power to create and embody the change you desire to see in your world. Settle in to unleash your wild flow. Welcome to another episode of Wild Flow. Thank you for being here and listening and tuning in. As always, it's such an honor to hold this space and share these conversations with you. Today's guest is a cycle coach sister. So she's a friend who turns out we actually grew up about half an hour away from each other in the UK, but we've only just met through our cycle coaching trainings together with Clive Baker's program, and her name is Jyoti Chadda, and I've invited her on the podcast today because she is a cycle coach, but she brings with her her own culture, her own traditions as a British Indian woman and a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher, and as a menstrual cycle coach and holistic wellness practitioner. And her training, her tradition is rooted in Ayurveda. And so I wanted to have this conversation with her to hear about how she brings her heritage, her background, her trainings, her perspectives to this cycle work, and how menstrual cycle awareness intersects with Ayurveda. So this is a really great conversation to add flavor to this idea of working with the inner seasons of the menstrual cycle and what Ayurveda can teach us. What sort of cyclical framework that brings us, how that connects us to our bodies and this, our overall holistic health as well. So I really enjoyed this, and I hope that you enjoyed and find it really interesting as a new way to connect into your inner cycles. So I'd like to introduce Jyoti. Jyoti is the founder of My Wellness Company, a yoga and a meditation teacher, a menstrual cycle coach, and holistic wellness practitioner. She is on a mission to make well-being accessible to everybody as they reconnect themselves. After all, this is our birthright, she says. She does this using a range of holistic wellness modalities, including yoga, menstrual cycle awareness, Ayurveda, and more. And you can learn more about her over on her Instagram and her website. I'll put those links in the show notes. So settle in with a cup of something delicious, and I'm really happy to share and introduce you to Jyoti, and love to hear what you take from this conversation, what stands out to you, and if you are able to connect in with your cycle in this new way through Ayurveda. Welcome, Jyoti, to Wildflow Podcast. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm good, thank you. Feeling a little sleepy, but super excited to be here.
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit sleepy too as well. It's evening here in Australia and morning for you in England. I'd love to start with a cycle check-in if that's okay. I'd love to ask you if you're happy to share if you have a menstrual cycle, where you are in your cycle and just how that's feeling for you in your body today. And if you don't have a menstrual cycle, if there are any seasons or cycles that you relate to and just how you feel in relation to those.
So I am on cycle day 12 and I'm in my inner spring still. And yeah, today I'm feeling relaxed, sleepy, as I said, and yeah, I feel grounded. We did a lovely meditation before we pressed record, so it's really helped me drop into my body. Because this can be a really difficult time for me, like my inner spring, those first few days, there can be a lot of anxiety. And I was definitely feeling that yesterday, but today it subsided a little, which is good and nice.
I'm glad to hear that for you. Yeah, I can really relate to that sense in that's in the spring of anxiety. I've had that too. For me, I'm currently day 16, so I'm just on the cusp of spring to summer. I'm having a very slow build up in my cycle, and I'm sort of feeling that I've got a bit more energy and resilience, rather than feeling completely worn out. I've had a really busy few days and I'm tired, but I've sort of got that capacity to keep going a little bit, but I don't think I'm not near ovulation. Definitely not. So it's going to be a long cycle, I think. So yeah, thank you for sharing. It's always really interesting to hear how each of us experiences it differently and compare where we're at. So not too far away in terms of day numbers, but yeah, not too different experience perhaps at the minute, but still very nuanced and separate and different for each of us. Yeah. So we met as cycle coaches on Claire Baker's training, and when you were studying last year and I was mentoring, and now this year you're a mentor on the program as well. And I just firstly want to say congratulations. And I'm so excited to have this time with you this year in this role. I'd love to just hear about, what brought you to cycle coaching.
Thank you so much. That's really kind. I'm so excited to work with you and the other mentors and Claire and the team too. Yeah, it's super exciting. So I think for me, like I used to be a primary school teacher before I started my own business, and it wasn't the job for me. And I would just go through cycles of, okay, I can do this. Actually, no, I don't want to do this. I want to leave. And I was just having these same patterns of thoughts. And I noticed that they were happening every month. And I thought to myself, I wonder like if my thoughts and like moods are connected to the moon. And I wonder if it's connected to my cycle. And I kind of knew that, your moods do shift a little, but not to the extent that I understand it now. And I didn't really think too much of it. Went to India, did my yoga teacher training. And then as I started my business, we went into lockdown, which meant that all of my offerings sort of went online. And I guess I was on Instagram more, finding more and more people in this kind of wellness, spiritual space. And one way or another, I came across Claire. But before that, actually, I'd listened to a podcast and someone was explaining what Maisie Hill's book was about. And the penny dropped because, they explain the inner seasons. And I just thought, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. I need to know more. Then I came across Claire and saw her training and was like, I need to do this. And here we are, like a year and a bit later. And now I'm a mentor, which is so exciting. So yeah, I guess on that journey, I've learned so much, and also I think healed a lot of my own kind of cycle for want of a better word, traumas. And yeah, I just really learned to understand myself better, which is such a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm really interested in, everybody's unique experience of their cycles and cycle awareness. And, you're a British Indian woman, and with your yoga training and your heritage and your culture, your background, what is it that you like, how do you weave together your cycle coaching? Like, how do you bring that into your cycle awareness, your cycle practice, the work that you do? I'm really interested to hear from you about what that looks like. Are you happy to share?
Yes, of course. So for me, I weave together the menstrual cycle awareness with yoga. And when I say yoga, I mean the whole practice of yoga, the entire philosophy and all the different limbs and so on, as well as Ayurveda. And I mean, this can look so different. So it can be practicing yoga in a more cyclical way. So I'm not always, doing the asanas, the poses and the postures the same every single day. I kind of feel into what my body needs, and I'm able to differentiate and to be much more gentle when I'm on my period, and go a little harder when I'm, it got that summer energy within me. And then also, like, Ayurvedically, thinking about what I eat. So I know if I can kind of adjust my diet, especially in my inner autumn, and eat more, I guess, whole foods and simple foods and lentils and rice and those kinds of things. Like, it's going to help me when I come to my inner winter, for it to be less painful, really. And the same with the way that I practice yoga. If I'm able to do more abdominal focused exercises, and I don't mean like doing abs, I mean like massaging the abdomen and doing different asanas that really support that, and twisting's really good for that. So anytime we do twisting asanas in our yoga practice, it's great for our abdomen area, to massage those internal organs. That can also help to reduce pain. And of course, everyone's different. So some people are going to need more or less or different things. But for me, I've found that to be really helpful. And yeah, I guess there's so much more, but just weaving the different things together, I think it's been really interesting for me to learn the different frameworks that we learn in Cycle Coach, like the seasons and the creative cycle and the archetypes, and then to look at the Ayurvedic cycle and see how they compare and how they're similar, how they're perhaps different. And yeah, it's been really fascinating.
Amazing. I really want to hear more about that. Are you happy to share? I'm like I love working with cycles and, the different ones that are available to us. And, I always encourage people to find the one that they relate to. And, curious to hear about the Ayurvedic cycles and what that looks like, what that means. And also, could you just explain briefly as well, just what Ayurveda is, what its principle is, like what it's about, because just if somebody's not sure or like not heard of it or anything like that.
Of course. So Ayurveda is made up of two words. So Ayur means life and Veda means knowledge. So Ayurveda means knowledge of life. And I think a lot of people, when they think of Ayurveda, they immediately think of food. And, that's exactly how I just described it as well, talking specifically about food. But it's so much more than that. There's so many different cleansing practices we can do and so much more to it. There's Ayurvedic massage and all of these things. So it really is a very holistic practice or science, really. And it's often referred to as the sister science to yoga, and they very much kind of go hand in hand. And within Ayurveda, there's no kind of separation or compartmentalization between like mental and physical health. Rather, like everything is understood as a whole. and it's understood like on this level of kind of what causes molecular disturbance and chemical imbalance in the human body through our three doshas. And I guess like you could think of these a little bit as like your health star sign, so to speak, and we all have different combinations. And I think I'll go into the different doshas, but what's important to understand is that even if you predominantly have vata dosha or one of them, you still have the other ones within you, and there's different times where different ones are more present. So it's not that you don't have any of that energy, because, you know, we're all made up of the elements that make up the earth and humans and so on. So Ayurveda really recognizes like the gross body, which is called the sukshma sharira, and the subtle body, which is the stula sharira. So the gross body includes your organs, your tissues, your cells, your hormones, and so on. And then the subtle body includes the three subtle internal forces, and these control all the functions of the body and are referred to as the tridosha, tri meaning three, and dosha, one translation is fault. So what we want to do here is to be in balance with our doshas for optimum health. So it's when we have like an imbalance of one of these doshas that it can lead to disease. So I think where Western medicine, and, you know, I'm not saying Western medicine is bad, like, of course it has its place and it's great and it's, you know, it definitely has its place. I think for me, Western medicine very much just puts a plaster on the problem. It doesn't get to the root cause. It's just like, oh, you know, how many menstruators have been to the doctor to say I've got this issue, and they just want to put us all on the pill. And of course there's nothing wrong with the pill or any form of hormonal contraception, but often there's a deeper rooted problem. So we need to get to that cause. And sometimes, of course, you know, we need to manage the symptoms whilst we kind of get to the root. But I think with Ayurveda, it really does get to the root, and that's kind of its focus. And it's very individualized. It's not like if you went to an Ayurvedic doctor, they wouldn't say, oh, you've got this, so we always give you this drug or something. And of course, they use a lot of herbs in their medicine as well. So we have our three doshas. And as I said, everyone has a combination of these, usually with one being more dominant. And I guess this is where it can get a little confusing. But when we're born, we have a dosha. We have our prakriti, it's called, like our genetic makeup. So for example, it could be pitta. But at any given point in time, you will have a different dosha because something else will be more dominant. So I guess to compare it to astrology, you know, you might be born a Virgo, but of course, you know, you still have all the other planets kind of within you, because just because your sun sign's Virgo, you might relate more to your moon sign, and depending on what's going on around you, you know, if we're in Mercury retrograde, you might be feeling a certain way, much like if it's different seasons, you will be feeling differently. So like now we're moving into spring. So I'm just actually doing an Ayurvedic cleanse, and it's very much to try and get rid of this stagnant Kapha energy, which I will go into what all of these words mean that I keep saying.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, it's very holistic, and it very much uses nature and the seasons. So moving into, I guess, the doshas, the three doshas that there are. So we have vata, we have kapha, and we have pitta. And vata is cold, it's light, it's dry, it's very spacious. So it's very much air energy. And this kind of is, it can feel, this energy is most prevalent in autumn as well. So people that have a predominantly vata makeup, they'll be like creative and communicative, lots of ideas. They'll be really quick to learn, but they'll also be very quick to forget. And they tend to have a varying appetite. So some days they could eat loads and the next day they just might not really be very hungry. And they're physically quite active as well. So they're quite like fast moving people. And a vata imbalance can lead to anxiety. So often when we're feeling anxious, there's an excess of vata within us. We have kapha, which is steady, it's stable, it's heavy, slow, cold and soft. And these people are thorough, they're determined, they're patient, they're slow. So they're much slower than vata people. They've got exceptional endurance and strength, and they have a much slower digestion. So generally speaking, like a vata person will probably have a smaller build, whereas a kapha person will have a slightly bigger build naturally. That's just, their genetic makeup. And then we have pitta, which is hot, light, sharp, oily, liquid, and is kind of the fire energy. So our digestion is ruled by pitta because we have the fire of our digestion to help us digest our food. So these people are fiery, they're quick thinking, they're natural leaders, they're competitive, powerful, and they have a really strong digestion. So if you've got a pitta digestion and you're the kind of person that will get very hangry, like you need to eat 3 meals a day, otherwise like shit's gonna hit the fan. And that's me. Like I need to eat my meals, otherwise I can't survive. And I do not understand these people who just don't need to eat breakfast. I'm just like, what? Like, but I need breakfast, otherwise I can't function. But obviously we're all so different. So yeah, that's a little bit about Ayurveda and the different doshas that we have.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. It was so thorough, but also really like easy for me to understand as somebody who like has like the most basic ever heard a little bit about Ayurveda and don't really kind of have, no more knowledge than that. So for me, I just found that really really useful to kind of see the difference and how it fits in and what the philosophy is, what it's rooted in, and then with the doshas as well, giving that sense of like archetypes and a sense of like you say, it's not fixed. It's like something we're born with, but then it can move through, and it reminds me of cycles as well. And as you were talking about the doshas, I was like, no, I'm definitely not that one. And then like, oh, no, I'm definitely not that one. And then you started reading the last one. I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And then when you said about getting hangry, I was like, yeah, that's definitely me too, totally. I think that one's most like me. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And so curious, does that relate to the menstrual cycle? Like, is there a way of relating, like how we might have inner seasons? Like, is that something that we might move through, or how does it influence our experience of a cycle? Like, just curious if that's a thing.
Absolutely. So within Ayurveda, there's said to be 3 phases of our cycle. So I suppose most people listening to this podcast will be used to having 4 phases. But Ayurveda states that there's 3, and each one is related to each of the doshas. So I guess in that way, it makes sense. So we have the Rajakala, which is the Vata phase, and this is days 1 to 5, or effectively your bleed. So I guess 1 to 7 as well, depending on your bleed. And this is, as I said, the Vata part of the cycle, and Vata governs movement. So as I said, Vata people are very active, and what happens is it encourages the downward flow of this energy, so that we're really supporting ourselves in clearing our menstrual blood and all the toxins from our body. So we're pushing that prana, that energy is going downwards. And this is also why, actually, I don't know if any of the listeners might have come across this, but yoga teachers and Ayurvedic practitioners discourage us from practicing inversions whilst we're menstruating. So even downward facing dog, or obviously handstands and all of those sorts of things. And it's not because they're trying to disempower us as menstruators or anything like that. It's actually because the vata energy is moving downwards. And if you're upside down, that energy is then moving the wrong way. So you're disrupting that flow and that flow of our blood leaving our body. So it's pretty interesting when you really kind of look at the science and the actual reasons behind things. And then obviously they get wrapped up in the patriarchy and capitalism and colonialization and all of that stuff and become very twisted. And when we don't understand the root, of course, we're going to think they're disempowering.
That's a really important point to note. I've had yoga teachers in the past who have absolutely said, like, you know, if anyone's bleeding, don't do X, Y, Z. And then other teachers have said, like, no, don't be ridiculous. Of course you can do this. And like, you should do this. So I really love hearing from you, like where it comes from, like why, and then, you know, I can make that informed choice in a class, like, well, I'm bleeding, so I'm not going to do that because I understand why. And I'm supporting that clearing. You said, like, the downward flow, clearing the energy in the blood downwards. Yeah, thank
absolutely.
you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's what's so important, what you said. We need to, if we understand, then we can make an informed choice. You know, of course, if you want to do downward facing dog and inversions and all of those things whilst you're on your period, that's your choice, you know. But like you said, I think we really need to understand the roots and the reasons why. Because even when I was in India doing my yoga teacher training, they suggested that. And a few of the people were like, oh my gosh, that's so like anti-feminist and all of these things. And at the time, I didn't fully understand. And then they explained it. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, I'm happy to follow that. So much like we're told, or we've kind of learned with our in our cycle coaching and with the different frameworks, when our menstrual cycle is healthy and, you know, we can tap into it, this phase becomes a time of inward contemplation, of like cleansing and really strong intuition. So in that way, it's very similar to the MCA version of the cycle. And, you know, we get a lot of creative ideas because Vata, again, is responsible for creative pursuits. Vata people are generally very, very creative. And it's also the time when the body just really longs to become still. We can hear our inner voice. And, you know, we can press reset, let go of what's not working for us and all of that kind of stuff. So in that way, like, it's very similar to the menstrual cycle awareness.
Yeah, that beautiful spiritual practice of menstruating. And I love that, you know, that reset, that release, the stillness, to hear the intuition come through. Yeah, that's really interesting that it's, you know, and, you know, obviously menstrual cycle awareness is not something that's, you know, it's relative, it seems new, but it's rooted in ancient wisdom. And, you know, I'm curious, I wonder where, you know, the sort of modern practices come from and where its roots are. But, you know, it seems obvious that ancient philosophies and traditions like Ayurveda would be, you know, something that would have been looked to surely for sort of forming this understanding of our cycle. So it feels like, you know, we're looking at something really old here that's like perhaps the roots of, you know, our understanding. So yeah, cool. Yeah, so what's next?
Yeah, so next we have the Ritu Kala phase, which is the Kapha phase. So this is roughly from basically the time you stop bleeding to the time you enter your ovulation. So after menstruation, the Kapha is dominant. And this, during this phase, Kapha is a very supportive energy. It's very strengthening. So this comes into play as with the thickening of our endometrium. And it's a time where we may feel our energetic best. We have a bit more stamina. We're able to take on some more challenging tasks. And I guess much like the inner spring leading into, like, I guess if you split summer in half, that first half of summer as you're kind of ovulating, it's very much the same energy. So, you know, actually yesterday I was editing my podcast that I'll be releasing hopefully soon. But I was trying to work this new software that I've never used before. And I tried to do it a few days before, and I was like, oh, I was getting so annoyed. And then yesterday I did it and I was like, why did I even try to do it a few days ago? Like, I should have waited till I was in my inner spring, in this phase where you can take on those more challenging tasks. You've got a bit more patience and you're more willing to learn, right?
Yeah, it's like that resilience and sort of focus and sort of like, you know, perseverance, perhaps. I really feel that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then finally, we have from the point of ovulation to the day you start your next bleed, we have the next phase, which is the Rutu Vyatita Kala, and this is the Pitta phase. So this is the phase of the cycle where progesterone is maintained, or it maintains the thickness of the endometrium. And it brings with it all the qualities of passion and drive and sexual desire. And during this time, many of us will feel a greater drive to do, to create, to socialize, to achieve. So we've got that ambitious and motivating energy of Pitta supporting us at this time. And it's often said that Pitta people make great CEOs and things like that. So they're really good leaders. So you've got that kind of leading energy. And here is, of course, where we can enter that PMS phase. So excessive Pitta can result in PMS. So acne, anger, physical exhaustion, headaches, and so on. So I guess in this phase, what's important is to try to do some Pitta pacifying practices and eat foods that will help to reduce Pitta as well. And much like in MCA, you know, this is a time where if we can slow down and be curious, we'll really notice what's not working for us. That kind of mask of diplomacy is lifted and we don't feel the need to live by other people's rules, you know, that real inner autumn energy. And obviously, our lovely modern world encourages us to suppress these feelings, to act normal. Otherwise, people are going to be like, oh, is it your time of the month? Are you PMSing? And all of those awful comments that we receive. But actually, like, it's so important that we know that to trust our body's signs and to listen to our intuition, because it can really create some huge shifts. So I think that's really important. And yeah, so I think in general, like in terms of the energies, it's very similar to, I mean, obviously, I don't know why we might have thought it might not be, but it's very similar to the MCA model and the inner seasons or whatever kind of framework you want to use. It's just split into three, really thinking about those doshas. And I guess like if you know what's at play in terms of the doshas and the energies and the elements as well that are more within you in those times, then once you obviously really understand Ayurveda, you know, we don't have time to go into it all, but you can do like those things that are going to help to reduce vata or increase pitta or, you know, whatever it is you need. And that's how you can really start to work with your body even more on, I guess, like another level, which is so powerful.
Wow, I'm really resonating with what you've said there. So I think I've identified there's some Pitta energy there for me. And, you know, when you said when it's excessive, the things that you described come up, like I can get that, like, you know, my skin's not great, and the sort of energy, my kind of I guess, like, you know, PMS as such, it can occasionally feel really present for me and other times not. But you know, I'm really curious about exploring the idea of doing some you said pacifying activities and eating some foods that can really support that. That's really interesting. So where, if somebody's listening, just going like, I want to find out more, like where can they come to find, more about exploring this for themselves and connecting with you?
Yeah, so I'd recommend this book called Rutu Vidya. So that's RTU, then VIDYA by Sinu Joseph. And this talks about the ancient science behind menstrual practices and goes deeper into like the Ayurveda, and it even brings in astrology, like Jyotish, so Vedic astrology, and lots of other things. And it also dispels the myths around, like for me growing up, I was told I shouldn't go to the temple when I was bleeding and things like that. So it goes into that, as well as obviously all the doshas and things. And you can also work with me one-to-one to understand your cycle better and to weave together all of the things that we spoke about today and more. So my business is called My Wellness Company. And I'd say the two best ways to connect with me would be via Instagram. So at My Wellness Company, head to the link in my bio and you'll find all the links that you need. Or of course, you can drop me a DM or go to my website, which is www.mywellnesscompany.co.uk. And there, you'll find loads of information. There's some blog posts, and you'll see my one-to-one offering, which is called Devoted, and all the information.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And just briefly tell us about the podcast that you are launching soon.
Yeah, so it's called Decolonizing Wellness, and it's all about looking at these different indigenous wellness practices. So things like Ayurveda and yoga and Reiki and the chakra system and so much more. Speaking to people from the cultures that these practices originate from and talking about the history, the roots, how we can appreciate, I always get that wrong, appreciate rather than appropriate them, and just understanding a bit more about what they are. So I've done a few interviews, got a few more to do, and it will hopefully be released in the next month or so. But yeah, it's very exciting.
Well done. I think it's such an important conversation for us to have and for everyone to listen to, just to, have that real sense of understanding. I think it's so important to honor the lineage of the teachings that we have and understand, like you were saying, understanding the reason why we do the things and have the things, like you were talking about inversions, just for one example, like understanding the reasoning and the lineage and the traditions and how things can just be taken and for granted. I think it's really great, and I can't wait to listen in. So yeah, celebrating you for that. I think it's brilliant. So I really invite everyone to make that one to listen to. Well, I know you've got to rush, but I'm sure off, and we could talk like all day. But my just last little question for you is just, I want to invite you to feel into and share what the greatest lesson that connecting to your body and your in a cyclical way, your cycle or the cycles. What has that revealed to you about yourself?
That's such a beautiful question. I think it's helped me to understand that I'm not going to feel the same every day, and I'm not always going to be this productive machine that the world would like me to be. And that's okay. It's really helped me to accept, and don't get me wrong, there's still days where I get frustrated with myself, but much more accepting to that fact that, there's days that I do just need to rest and have a nap in the middle of the day or to have a slow morning or, whatever it may be. And that's completely okay. And also that I don't have everything that I do doesn't have to be for a purpose. Like I can just do something because I enjoy it. It doesn't have to make me money. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, going to please someone else or whatever it may be, all these reasons that we have to give ourselves to do things. it's okay to just do things because they bring us joy.
Such an important point. Thank you for sharing that. I really feel that one too. It's been a learning for me. So, beautifully answered. Thank you. Well, I'm so grateful for you coming on the podcast, and I'm so excited to listen to your podcast and to work with you as mentors, as cycle coaching mentors this year too. And it's just been really lovely to connect with you. And everyone go over and find Jyoti's pages and Instagram and everything, and I'll pop it all in the show notes, including that book as well, so that everyone can come find you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating, or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community, or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.